Hello and welcome to our live product demo on streamlining well certification with Kaiterra. My name is Dan Bong, and I am the Customer Experience Manager for Kaiterra. I've been here with the company for about 3 years now, and in that time, I've worked with hundreds, possibly even thousands of clients at this point, helping them make use of our products and services in order to help improve their built environments. I see many people that I've worked with already in the chat, so hello to all of you, and to all the new faces. I hope you are here and excited to learn about everything that we have to offer, as well as our new well compliance checker that we'll talk about a little bit later. I am also a well-accredited professional, so I've advised on quite a few well projects around the world, which is why today's webinar is just extremely exciting for me personally, which is why I kind of fought tooth and nail in order to get permission to actually run this webinar today. Our team's been working really hard to develop some really awesome tools specifically for well projects, and I cannot wait to show them to you in just a couple of moments. But before we get there, this webinar is brought to you by Kaiterra. And for those who are unfamiliar with us, Kaiterra provides a complete air quality optimization platform, which leverages our best-in-class hardware, advanced software analytics, and our internal team of experienced air experts like myself to manage and improve the indoor air quality in your built environment. Before we begin, we'll go over a few housekeeping items here. This webinar is live and will be recorded and made available on demand. Today's session will be about 45 minutes long. The demo itself will run for about 35 minutes, and then we'll answer any questions you may have in the remaining time. You can send in your questions at any time during the discussion via the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screens. We'll collect them and answer as many as we can during the Q&A portion. If there's any remaining that we cannot get to by the end of the webinar, we'll, of course, get in touch and answer your questions accordingly. As for the agenda, we will be starting with an introduction to the well standard and its IAQ components, so its indoor air quality components. Then we'll be doing a live demo of Kaiterra's brand new well compliance checker, which, again, we are just really excited to showcase to you all today. It's going to be an absolute game changer for those well projects out there. Afterwards, we'll talk about achieving well certification with Kaiterra. And finally, we'll end off with some Q&A. All right, so let's start by talking about well certification. I'm sure many of you attending are familiar with what well is, but as a brief introduction or refresher, the well standard was established by the International Well Building Institute to advance health and wellness through the transformation of the built environment. Building off of their Well V1, the IWBI launched their Well V2 program, which focuses almost exclusively on building occupant health and well-being. Now, on screen, you'll see the 10 categories or concepts that well focuses on. And as you can see, they all have a very clear relationship with providing healthy indoor environments. And while I might be a bit biased for many reasons, I do feel like these features, whether intended or not, are listed in the order of their importance. So while things like building materials or thermal comfort of your occupants are definitely important elements of a healthy indoor environment, you can only go minutes without air. You can only go days without water and maybe weeks without nourishment. So I really do view indoor air quality as one of the most important factors when it comes to the well standard. And when you look at the air concept itself, it's kind of hard to argue against that point. Now, on screen, you can see a breakdown of the air concept and all 14 of its different features. Now, from this concept, you're able to achieve 18 points towards your well certification. To put that into perspective, achieving the base level well, which is well bronze, requires 40 points. So being able to say that from the air concept alone, you're about halfway there is a pretty big deal. And when you read through these features, all of them feel like common sense things that you would see in every building. For example, A07, operable windows. Yes, I would love to have the option to open up a window if my cubicle or classroom is feeling stuffy and the air quality outside is good. Or A11, source separation. Yes, being able to say that our bathrooms, our kitchens, our cleaning supply closets are all in separated spaces, and that the air in those spaces is not recirculated throughout the building is a pretty good thing. So when you think about and read through these different air concept features, it quickly goes from a list of 14 things that you're trying to accomplish to a list of things that I would just expect to be in every building. Now, the one thing that's really cool about the air concept is that it does contain 4 precondition features at the top, which are requirements in order to achieve well certification. So without these four things, you cannot get certified at all. Out of all the concepts in the WELL standard, so your air, your water, your nourishment, etc., having four preconditional requirements is the most of any concept out there, as most of them have one, two, sometimes three requirements. This really speaks to the importance of indoor air quality for healthy buildings. And when you read these preconditions, it makes sense as to why they're required for every single project. A01, air quality, in general, has to be at an acceptable level. Air is something that we breathe into our bodies every couple of seconds for our entire lives. So making sure your air quality is up to par is really important. Providing signage to reinforce a smoke-free environment is responsible. And it isn't just to prevent indoor smoking, but to also provide signage that directs smokers to their designated areas away from the building to really reinforce your healthy building message. Having a proper ventilation system in your HVAC just makes sense. Being able to say that your HVAC is aligned with the various ASHRAE or equivalent standards helps reinforce your commitment to providing a healthy space. And finally, construction pollution management refers to scenarios where if your building is going to be undergoing construction, there are going to be practical ways to protect the tenants of the building from any exposure to those pollutants. Now, for the rest of this presentation, we'll be focusing on the features that can be achieved via sensor data and continuous monitoring or performance testing, which is currently highlighted on screen. For more information on any of the other air features, we've got some great resources that we can share, and you're also welcome to get in touch with our team to discuss them further. Our contact information will be provided at the end, and I'm always happy to discuss WELL projects with anyone, so feel free to reach out after today's webinar. Now, when it comes to using sensor data and continuous monitoring to achieve WELL certification, there are some great features and points that you can earn through this pathway. We briefly mentioned it before, but A01 is all about air quality. It's a precondition, which means you have to achieve this in order to get your WELL certification, and it's broken down into 5 parts. It seems like a lot of elements to this, but what it really breaks down to is part 1 is about meeting the thresholds for particulate matter, so making sure that your PM levels in the building are at a reasonable level. Part 2 is looking at organic gases, so this is going to be your benzenes, your formaldehydes, or what is categorized as total volatile organic compounds, keeping those at a reasonable level as well. Part 3 is looking at inorganic gases, so this is going to be your carbon monoxides and ozone levels. Part 4 is looking at radon, which is really important, especially if you are a building at ground level or you're an office at ground level. And then part 5 is looking at measuring air parameters, so measuring your PM, your VOCs, your carbon monoxides, your ozones, et cetera, with continuous monitoring. Now, A03 is looking at ventilation design. Again, a precondition, so something that you need to have in order to get your WELL certification. It just has one part, but it looks at providing adequate mechanical ventilation that follows the ASHRAE or equivalent standards. If your building doesn't have mechanical ventilation, then your building has to have adequate natural ventilation present. For regions that might have elevated PM levels, but no mechanical ventilation, they're a little bit more lenient, but they still have natural ventilation requirements, or that you use continuous CO2 monitoring and that occupiable spaces in the building remain below 900 parts per million or 500 parts per million below outdoor levels. So again, trying to keep those CO2 levels low is what most folks try to go for when they're using continuous monitoring in this case. Now, A05 is looking at enhanced air quality. This is going to be an optimization, which means that you can actually earn points for your WELL certification. And it really just looks at A01 and takes it above and beyond those requirements. So for example, particulate matter through either sensor data or performance testing, if you're able to keep those PM 2.5 levels below 12 micrograms or PM 10 levels below 30 micrograms, you can earn 1 point. But if you go further and get your PM 2.5 levels below 10 or your PM 10 levels below 20, you can earn 2 points. As for organic gases, this is through a performance test. There's a long list of individual organic gases that you can test for, and if they're all below their thresholds, then you earn an additional point. And then there's one more section for inorganic gases, which is looking at carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide. Again, if you can keep them below a certain threshold, you can earn an additional point there. A06 is looking at enhanced ventilation design, again, similar to A05 for air quality. A06 is looking at the ventilation design precondition and taking it above and beyond again. Here you can earn up to 3 points here. For part 1, you're looking at different ways that you can increase your outdoor air supply into the building, such as exceeding the outdoor air supply rates that were outlined in A03, using things like demand control ventilation to keep CO2 levels low, or by conducting continuous ventilation monitoring and having your CO2 levels lower than the A03 standards. Part 2, you can also earn a point for improving your ventilation effectiveness. So this can either be done by having a displacement ventilation system where fresh air is coming in at the ground level and venting out throughout the roof, or you can have personalized ventilation systems for at least half of your workstations. And finally, A08, we're looking at air quality monitoring and awareness. Again, in optimization, so you can earn 2 points here. The first point looks at having you install indoor air quality monitors that measure at least 3 parameters from a list of those available. So this is going to be your particulate matters, your carbon dioxides, your TVOCs, your ozone, etc. You'll then want to take that data and submit it through the WELL digital platform for your certification or recertification, and also provide a proof of calibration with the device and the data that you're submitting. For part 2, it's looking to promote your air quality to building tenants. So this can be done through a display screen throughout the building that tells you, hey, this room is at this air quality level. And you can also have an accessible website that people can access through, say, a QR code, for an example. So as you can see, there are a lot of points that can be earned by using continuous monitoring in your building, which is why we see so many companies installing these air quality monitors into their branches, their headquarters, or even outfitting their entire building portfolios. But with continuous monitoring comes 2 very important and very common pain points that we get asked about all of the time. The first question is my IAQ good enough? Real-time data from IAQ monitors doesn't easily tell you whether your IAQ complies with WELL in the past 30 days for certification or even the past 12 months for recertification. Essentially, what you're looking at is just data. It's just a bunch of data points in a spreadsheet. It's also hard to identify risks and underperforming spaces. Poor air is usually discovered when you're ready to submit your data for your certification, and suddenly you find a space that fails the WELL qualifications, which causes significant project delays because you now have to find the problem and implement a solution and then collect enough data again in order to qualify. The other question is, how do I submit my data? Raw data from air quality monitors is the equivalent of looking at a spreadsheet with thousands of data points per parameter, per device, and per building. So if you are a small office with a handful of indoor air quality monitors, that's still tens of thousands of data points. But if you're a larger office or looking at a portfolio of buildings to submit, you're now looking at hundreds of thousands or even millions of data points. And since WELL requires that data submission to be submitted in a special format and a special template, and this data is not automatically formatted in this way, human efforts are now needed to download and organize and reformat the data for submission, which can take days or even weeks to do and is definitely prone to human error. Now, the good news is that we at Kaiterra have a brand new solution that directly contributes towards easing these 2 pain points for our clients. And that solution is called the WELL Compliance Checker. The WELL Compliance Checker will directly benchmark the indoor air quality performance of your building against the WELL standard in 1 click. So you no longer have to painstakingly look at every single data point, then check the benchmark, and then rinse and repeat for tens of thousands or millions of data points. It's all done for you in 1 click. It also identifies risk in areas where you're not meeting the standard, allowing you to stay on top of your certification process. So if in the early stages of your building project, you find a room with TVOC issues, you can tackle those issues, implement a solution, and then continue on with your data collection, minimizing any delays in your WELL submission. It also prepares all of the data for you in a nice downloadable package, saving time and expenses, while also reducing errors along the way when trying to submit your data. I've heard horror stories from other WELL APs that would spend literal days and weeks manually preparing these data sets. So this WELL Compliance Checker will immediately become their best friend. Overall, the well compliance checker is a great tool to have at your disposal for any well certification project, and I would actually like to show you how it works. So we are going to take a quick shift here as I get the live demo ready for you guys here. And again, the well compliance checker is one of our reporting features as part of our Kaiterra web app or Kaiterra dashboard offering. So really excited to, again, share this. And if you want to use this feature for your current or upcoming well projects, make sure to get in touch with our team. Alrighty. So for those of you that have worked with Kaiterra before, you may recognize this page here. This is your landing page for your buildings and devices on the Kaiterra dashboard. And for today's scenario, we have two offices that are already existing. We've got our New York office and our Switzerland office. And we are going to attempt to go through the well compliance checker for both of these buildings. So to do so, we will be, let me just click there. We'll be navigating to the reports tab, and you will be looking for the well compliance checker, which again is currently in beta. If you want to use this feature for your upcoming well projects, make sure to get in touch with us. Again, really excited to get these into the hands of well projects out there. So once you click on the actual well compliance checker, you can see that I've already run a report for our New York office. And we can see right off the bat that in terms of certification for well V2, we're meeting all of the criteria. We've got some check marks. We are good to go there. But as for the well performance rating, which is more of a performance-driven, sensor data-driven version of well and the well standard, we're actually missing one of the criteria. So we'll look into that in a little bit. But let's say that we want to apply for the well compliance checker or run a report through the well compliance checker for our Switzerland office. We'll go up to the top right-hand corner. There's a new report button, and we're going to check off the office that we want to create a report for. And we're going to select all of the devices that apply to this report. In most cases, that's going to be every device, but you might have, say, an outdoor device that you don't want to include for this report itself. Once you click submit, that's it. Like we said, it's just a couple of clicks and your report is now processing. It's going to take about 24 hours to go through the actual processing. But what it's currently doing is it's looking at all of the data for your building and its operating hours and determining, does it meet the thresholds? Does it meet the requirements for these various well features? It's going to go through every single data point and it will spit out a blanket response like the one you see on the left for the New York office, where do we meet certification for well V2 and well performance rating. So again, a couple of clicks does all the data analysis for you and you're good to go. Now let's dive into the actual report and see what it actually looks like. So for the New York office, we're going to click on view details here. And we can see here that again, for well V2, we are meeting all of the criteria for the last 30 days, which means we are good to go for well certification. If we want a breakdown of it, we can scroll down to the bottom and see all of the different areas that we are meeting for well certification. So for example, A01, again, that's air quality. It gives you a brief description of what this is. So provide acceptable air quality levels. And if you click the read more, it'll take you directly to the well V2 page, and it'll give you the descriptions and more details about this actual feature that you're trying to achieve. And again, we've got check marks for particulate matter, organic acids, inorganic gases, and monitoring these air parameters. So we're good to go. So again, you can click through all of the different ones, see the breakdowns, get more information, and you're good to go. Now, if we were submitting this to well, since we are meeting all of the criteria and we're good to go, what we want to do is then click the export button in the top right-hand corner. We'd want to choose the end date for this report. For most folks, it's going to be today, but let's say you're submitting from the end of October, you could change this to October 31st. Click next, and it just asks you for your email addresses that you want to have the reports exported to, and click submit. And again, that's it. So what our system is now doing is it's compiling all of that data into the proper format for well submission, because again, it's very particular. It's got a specific template and how to actually put all of the data there. And once it prepares all of that data for all of your devices in the building, it'll then send you an email with all of the attached files. And those attached files can just be directly submitted through the well digital platform. And you're good to go. Now, as a small disclaimer, just because this says that we are meeting the criteria for the last 30 days does not 100% guarantee that you're going to get these points. It's just based on what we see in the data for your operating hours and based on what has been placed in front of us, you should get these credits. So again, it's not a guarantee, but it's on the right path for sure. Now, let's look at the last problem that we mentioned before starting this live demo, which was, what if there is a problem or there is an issue in a space that we want to try and fix? So we'll go over to the well performance rating for this example, and we can see that in the breakdown, PA2 is actually the one that is not meeting certification requirements. So we can click up into the breakdown. We can understand what this one is about, and it looks like it's about stringent particulate matter thresholds. You can get more information. Again, it'll take you to the well performance rating page and tell you more details, but you can also click on check 2 issues. And this now lets me know, oh, it's our sales office and our product office that they're not meeting the requirements for PM 2.5. So now that I have this information, because I generated the reports at the beginning, I can now understand, okay, we have an issue with PM 2.5. Let's go on site. Let's try and investigate the issue. Let's see how we can improve the air quality there. Whatever means necessary, we can make that improvement now, as opposed to waiting until we're about to submit for certification and get this solved so that we can get the data, get it cleaned up, and be ready for our certification process. So again, all of our processes here through the well compliance checker, it ticks all the boxes in terms of making your data submission easy, understanding what's going on in your building, and it's just a great way to really organize the data and really stay on top of your certification process. So that was the well compliance checker, and I will remind you guys once again, if you want to use this feature for your current or upcoming well projects, make sure to get in touch with our teams. Alrighty, so we're going to take a quick switch back to our presentation here. And give me one moment. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like to submit, make sure to use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You can submit questions at absolutely any time, and we'll get to those at the end of this presentation. Alrighty, so should be good to go. Give me 1 second here. Alrighty, so now that you've seen the well compliance checker, let's talk about achieving well certification with Kaiterra. Now, as mentioned before, Kaiterra is a complete air quality optimization platform, and part of our offering includes our air quality monitors. As we saw earlier, an air quality monitoring system can be an important component of a successful well certification. Continuous monitoring is a great way to track various air quality parameters and contributes to a plethora of the well air features. But there are also some additional benefits to using our IAQ monitors. For well certification, they have a strict list of requirements and accuracy ranges that our IAQ monitors must meet, or that your IAQ monitors must meet in order to be used in a well project. So it's good to know that Kaiterra monitors are reset certified grade B air quality monitors that meet all of the technical requirements for pursuing well certification through their continuous monitoring pathways. The SenseEdge Mini is also part of the Works with Well catalog, which means you can have confidence in ticking those boxes when using our products and services. And it's not just about the points that you can directly earn by using our air quality monitors. Our IAQ monitors can also help with other features throughout well, including other air features. So for example, with A07, that has to do with operable windows, earning points here requires having knowledge of the air quality outside of your building, which our devices could theoretically be used for. So you can set up a device outdoors, you can understand the PM levels, and that would enable you to have A07 operable windows covered. There's also the thermal comfort concept, where you can use our temperature and relative humidity readings from our monitors to work towards achieving T01, which is thermal performance, T06, which is thermal comfort monitoring, and T07, which is humidity control. So all in all, through the continuous monitoring pathways, you can earn a maximum of 8 points by implementing Kaiterra solutions, as well as meeting 3 of the preconditions for the air and thermal comfort concepts. Now, calibration is a very important part of air quality monitoring. You want to make sure that your sensors are all measuring accurately. And while all air quality monitors should be calibrated prior to their initial installation, how these monitors get recalibrated will vary. The traditional way of recalibration typically requires either having someone come in and manually calibrate every monitor in your building, which can take up a significant amount of time and coordination, or having someone uninstall the monitors, ship them back to the manufacturer, have them recalibrate the sensors, ship them back to the building, and have them all reinstalled. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but there are projects out there that have gone through that process. In either scenario, you're looking at a large maintenance cost and potential sensor downtime, which also impacts the carbon footprint needed for either calibration method. Our Kaiterra indoor air quality monitors use an innovative modular design, which allows our SenseEdge and SenseEdge Mini to be easily recalibrated by swapping out old sensors for new ones. This process of replacing the sensors can be done by absolutely anyone and does not require a specific technician or specialist. This can be done in seconds by a facility manager, or I've even seen a company intern do it once. These new sensors will also automatically come with a certificate of calibration, which is required by WELL during both the certification and recertification process. So you can simply upload this information through the WELL online portal, and you're good to go. Now, in addition to our hardware is our advanced software analytics. As you saw in our WELL compliance checker, which is just one of the many reporting features that we offer, our dashboard and analytical tools allow you to not only stay on top of your WELL project, but also allows you to truly analyze your building's IAQ data. So for those that are part of a workplace experience team, a sustainability team, or a facility management team, we have software analytic tools that you can use to make your lives easier, as we can take your raw data points and turn them into actionable insights that can make a difference. And if you don't believe me, we do have a proven track record of success. One example is Kaiterra's IAQ monitoring solutions that are being used as part of the International Well Building Institute's New York City office. So our IAQ monitors helped the creators of the WELL standard achieve their own WELL Platinum certification back in 2019 and are still used to this day in order to maintain their certification. Other examples include the IWBI office in Asia and the US GBC headquarters in Washington, D.C. So again, proven track record, some great companies that we work with, and excited to work with more. And that is it for the presentation portion of our webinar today. I would like now to invite you, if you haven't already, to share your questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And while our team is getting prepared to ask those questions my way, here is our contact information. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a casual chat there. But for any questions and inquiries, feel free to email us at info@kaiterra.com. Awesome. So I'll keep the screen open. I just need to open up a couple of tabs over here. Great. So it looks like we do have some questions coming in. Again, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom to submit your questions here. Happy to answer any questions with regards to today's presentation, to IAQ, pretty much anything that your heart desires that is relevant to what we're discussing. We have one here from Michael. Will this compliance checker be available to existing customers at an additional cost? The short answer is yes. So the WELL compliance checker is going to be offered as part of our subscription service. So for more information on that, get in contact with our sales team. If you're an existing customer, you should have a contact with our sales department already. Send them an email, ask them about the WELL compliance checker, and we'll get you taken care of. From Oliver, is that report enough for WELL certification? How are parameters handled which my Kaiterra device does not measure? Great question. So in terms of the WELL certification, the parameters that our devices are measuring are going to be covered through those different features. So for example, for A01 air quality, you're looking at measuring things like particulate matter, and our devices measure that. So you're looking at organic gases, so your TVOCs, that is something that our devices are measuring as well. For inorganic gases, you're looking at ozone. Our SenseEdge Mini is capable of measuring ozone. So if there is a parameter that is not being measured, it will simply say that there is no data available for this feature. But if it is being measured by our devices, then that will qualify for that actual feature and tick the box and give you that point once it is verified by the WELL team. So I hope that answers your question there. Where do I find the requirements set by well according to the sensors? Great question. So if you go to the Well V2 website, if you search up Well V2 standard, they do have a great landing page that has a breakdown of all of the 10 different concepts as well as their different features. But also if you click on the read more when you're accessing the compliance checker on our side of things, you'll be able to get redirected directly to that page. And it tells you, it gives you a description of, for example, what A01 is, and A01 part 1 is about meeting acceptable thresholds for particulate matter. And then it'll give you the breakdown of, okay, the acceptable thresholds for particulate matter is to be under 25 micrograms per cubic meter, or below 15 or below 12 or below 10 for enhanced levels to earn your well certification points. So all of that information is available on their website. And in terms of what our compliance checker does, it just compares all of those accordingly. We have a question from Ken. Carbon monoxide monitoring, is it going to be added to the monitors? Great question. That is something that we've always discussed. In carbon monoxide, of course, being more of an outdoor pollutant is something that we've been looking into more. No timeline in terms of actual development, but it is something that we are looking at, especially with the discussions of using our monitors more for outdoor monitoring, being able to give buildings a full picture. We've seen a lot of projects, especially in 2023, where clients are installing, say, a SenseEdge or a SenseEdge Mini immediately outside of their building. And then that way they can get an idea of the particulate matter levels. So being able to include CO with that would be a great addition. And it's something that we are looking into, but no timeline currently for that. And one final question, does Kaiterra take back the old sensors, or are they just trash? So currently, what we do with these sensors is, especially since these projects are in lower quantities of the actual sensor modules, they can be e-waste recycled on site, as opposed to having you ship back all of the sensors back to us, and then we can recycle them accordingly. In the future, we are planning on having a system where we can actually take those sensor modules back and repurpose them, make use of the materials, etc. But in terms of the quantities, we just don't have enough projects that are in large quantities to kind of offset the carbon footprint of having you ship back all of those sensors. So what you can currently do is have them e-waste recycled locally, low carbon footprint. They're still taken care of in the proper way. Alrighty, so if there are any more questions, again, feel free to submit them through the Q&A tab below. I'm always happy to answer any questions, both about today's presentation, about IAQ, about Kaiterra. Again, been with the company for quite a while now, so I'm always happy to answer more questions from you guys. Great. We have a couple more coming in here from David. What frequency should sensor replacement take place? Great question. So for well certification, you do have to have these sensors recalibrated every 12 months in order to resubmit for well recertification. So for well projects, you do have to replace them every 12 months because that is the recalibration process for our sensors, is the physical replacement of a newly calibrated sensor going into the device. So for well certification, you're looking at 12 months. In terms of general projects that might not necessarily be going for well certification, our sensors can last on average 18 to 24 months. So you're looking at about a 2-year period before you need to replace those sensors to maintain their accuracy. And a question from Mark. Do you see any migration or advancement in the standard regarding more granularity in PM, i.e. PM1? Great question. Always the difficult questions from Mark. PM 2.5 is kind of considered as the benchmark for particulate matter measurements. And when it comes to particulate matter, there's just so much research over the last 50, 60, 70 years about PM 2.5, because that is the size of particulate matter that can actually penetrate into your bloodstream and really impact your body. When we're looking at something like PM 10, the particles are bigger. They're not necessarily getting through into your bloodstream. They cannot penetrate into your bloodstream as easily. A lot of it gets stopped in your nose and your nose hairs, for example, not to get into too too gross of details there. But with PM1, and when we're looking at smaller particles, there's just not enough research out there these days. More research papers and whatnot are coming out about PM1, and I feel that as that develops and as we understand more about PM1, PM 0.3, et cetera, and as the technology gets better so that we can accurately measure particulate matter that is smaller, I do believe that there's going to be some changes in that sense. But in the grand scheme of things, I think PM 2.5 is a really good benchmark to understand, is your air quality good or not good? Because PM 2.5, there's so much research out there that tells you all of the disadvantages of having high particulate matters levels in your building and exposure in general. But thanks for the question. Alrighty, we got one question left in my queue, and we still have a couple more minutes. So if you have absolutely any questions, please do submit them through the Q&A tab. Once again, I've been working with Kaiterra for 3 years, been in the air quality scene for quite a while now, so always happy to share my thoughts on any of your questions and whatnot. Okay, so last question here for now. How many sensors are there that needs to be replaced due to calibration issues? Are you using integrated sensors in one module? Okay, good question. Let me try and break it down so I understand it completely here. Due to calibration issues. Oh, okay. So with our sensors, I mean, we have the occasional client that might have an issue with a sensor here and there. But in terms of the number of sensors that we have to replace due to issues with calibration, it's extremely small. I've probably processed less than 5 this year alone. And again, it will vary. Sometimes these calibration issues aren't actual calibration issues. It's a transportation issue, for example. So with a TVOC sensor, it's in transit, could be exposed to a lot of VOCs along the way, which throws off its entire calibration in the process of getting shipped from us to the client. So there could be some issues with that. In terms of the number of sensors that are actually in the sensor module cartridges, these sensor modules here, it depends. So some of the sensors, for example, this one that I'm holding right now is a PM 2.5 sensor for our SenseEdge, and inside of it is just the particulate matter sensor. Whereas the TVOC sensor, the second sensor that goes into the device, that has our temperature, our relative humidity, and our VOC sensor. So we do have multiple sensors in these cartridges, in these sensor modules at times. And again, as we continue to develop more sensor modules down the road, we'll look at form factor, how we can fit them into these same sensor modules. That way, for future proofing of our devices, if you want to start measuring carbon monoxide, for example, you'd be able to replace the sensor module and not have to lose one of the parameters or pollutants that you're measuring before. Alrighty, and looks like we have one last question here. Is TVOC generally a problem to stay within thresholds due to its unspecific response? That is a great answer. Great question, I should say. And with TVOCs, it can get difficult when you're measuring. But the way that I look at VOCs is that, so to take a step back, TVOCs, total volatile organic compounds, the way that it's measured in most cases is that you're going to have a broadband semiconductor that is going to detect a wide range of VOCs. So you're going to have hundreds of VOC types in the air, and there's going to be a lot of them that are common in North American, European indoor spaces. Maybe in APAC, there's a slightly different mix of VOCs that are in the air. But the way I see it is if you can keep all of your VOCs low, then you're good to go. So proper ventilation, making sure that your materials, your desks, your furniture are not off-gassing. By keeping all of them low, then your air quality is going to be good. Now, dealing with specific VOCs, that can be difficult. And I have worked on projects where there was buildings that just could not identify the actual issue that was going on, but it was a VOC issue that was just causing their VOCs to increase overnight. And at the end of the day, they just had to look at ventilation, number one, and number two, trying to find the source of that VOC contaminant, which ended up being their couch in their reception area. So it can be difficult to answer your question, Oliver. It can be difficult, but going through the proper channels of identifying the source, removing that source, and having proper ventilation is going to be a really big key for solving that one. And we've got one last question, and then we'll wrap it up here from Ken. Could the PM 2.5 sensor get loaded over time and give false readings? Great question. And this is where I go back to the whole idea of you need to replace your sensors over time. No sensors are going to be able to provide accurate readings forever, especially with the PM sensor. In most cases, you're going to be using some type of light scattering technology in order to look at the number of particles in the air and converting that into a particulate matter number. But over time, those sensors are going to get dusty. They're going to get covered with a whole bunch of different things. And there's no way for that to stay accurate, year after year, month after month. So getting a replacement is going to be important. And again, for our devices, we look at about 2 years before you should replace those. Alrighty. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Shona, for your kind words. Really do appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to our live product demo on streamlining well certification with Kaiterra. One last time, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn directly. You can send an email to our team if you're interested in our well compliance checker or just talking about well projects or any building projects out there. Feel free to shoot us an email at info@kaiterra.com. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.